Yeah, yeah. He didn't answer. I left him a long voicemail message, thanked him, and said, I understand it'll be your 50th. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I talked to his dad. His dad never said anything.
Yep. No, I called him. You sent that to me, and I called him the next night. It wasn't the night you sent it. It was the next night.
You're still doing that.
I've just done 4 of them between the time I left the office and here, because a lot of times people don't answer, right? So I leave a voicemail message.
So when is that new announcement? It's Thursday, right? 3 o'clock Thursday?
I don't even know what I'm doing Thursday.
There's some announcement on the Yard of Bricks, some new thing for the new experience. With Sarah? Sarah's going to be there.
Yeah.
Thursday at 3 o'clock?
Welcome to the Autosportradio.com 2018 show. I'm your host, Don Kay. We are live from McGilvery Speedway, 30th and High School in the beautiful town of Speedway, Indiana. And remind you, if you're coming into town for the Brickyard or for the air race, you've got to be sure and come to McGilvery. It's only about 2.5 miles straight west of the Speedway. They got great food, great service, and the adult beverages are ice cold. Tonight's show is presented by Honda and Honda HPD, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the Verizon IndyCar Series, and SVRA. A couple things to make note. If anybody's looking for tickets, I have 4 tickets in the Tower Terrace all the way at the north up at the top. Their face is 95, and that's all they want for them. Get a hold of me if you're interested. Seems to me also, how many watched the race this weekend from Phoenix? Seems to me that there's going to be a great battle between 2 manufacturers, Honda and Chevrolet. Honda's looking tough, so stand by for that one. That should be a good. Don't forget, this weekend is race number 3 for the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach. It will televise live on Sunday on NBC Sports Network, but you can also get the practice and qualifying on racecontrol.indycar.com. So check it out, keep up with what's going on. And for those of you going out to Long Beach, I highly recommend, if you're a seafood lover, you got to go to the Fish Bar. It's on Manhattan Beach, and it's located at 3801 Highland Avenue. If you like seafood, this place is phenomenal. They're open. Their hours are Monday through Thursday, 11 to 11, Friday, 11 to 1, Saturday, 9 to 1 a.m., and 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. on Sunday. If you get a chance, you're out there, stop in. I'm going to bypass some of this other things that I normally read because I have a guest that I've been trying to get for some time, and he's busy tonight. He's always busy. It's that time of year, but he's busy all year. He has been involved in motorsports for the majority of his life. I met him first when he was the communications director for Mayor Stephen Goldsmith. I asked, how in the world can I get the mayor? He's at 16th Street Speedway. How do you get him? He said, go see that guy. I said, who's he? His name is Doug Boles. Go talk to him. And lo and behold, within about 3 weeks, I had the mayor on the show, and I've been pestering him ever since. He has now got the greatest job I could ever think of having. He's president of Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Please welcome Mr. Doug Boles. Now, I got to think that you have a job that you only dreamed could happen. When you got the call, what did you think? When they said, how would you like to come here as a chief? I think you were chief operating officer to start with. What did you think when you got that call?
Well, I think we've talked about this before, but like a lot of us in this room, growing up passionate about the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and in particular the Indy 500, I don't know that I could have ever dreamed about this job, right? It's not one that you could dream about working at the Speedway. You could dream about being part of the Speedway, but even when they made me chief operating officer, I don't think I ever thought that being president would be something that I'd end up doing at the Speedway. And when Mark called me and said, hey, I need you to meet me in the Pagoda in May of 2013, and we sat down and started chatting through some of the things he was going to do, and we're talking about IndyCar and the Speedway, and he said, I know your passion's the Speedway. We need some help at IndyCar. We also have some thoughts of the Speedway. What do you think? And I said, I love this place so much, the Speedway. If there's any opportunity to stay here and focus on the Speedway, it's really where I want to be. And in July, they made it official of July of 13, and it's been it's been a really amazing almost 5 years now. It's hard to believe the time's gone that fast, and there's not been a day yet, even before being president. There's not been a day that I haven't looked forward to. Couldn't wait to get into the Speedway, and I know it's a family-owned company, and at some point you sort of serve at the pleasure of the family, and there'll be a time when they say, okay, your time's gone, and I'll move on from there. But it's no matter what job I have after this, there will never be a better job than being president of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Especially, and I think most of your audience gets it. It's about the history and tradition. It's what makes the facility special. It's also about how do you get it so that it can change and grow, so that 100 years from now there are people still talking about the Speedway. But you have to do it through the lens of that DNA, that history and tradition that's so important you got to protect, and what are the things then that you can begin to move on. And it's been pretty neat to think about sitting in the same, not literally the same seat, but in the same seat as Carl Fisher, Eddie Rickenbacker, Wilbur Shaw, Tony Holman, Tony George, and just John Cooper. I mean, just great people who have had an opportunity to run the Joey Chitwood, a chance to run the Speedway. But it really is less about me, and it's really more about an unbelievable team that really executes every day.
Yeah, but the thing that you bring that I've noticed, and a lot of other people have, you're out there. You're out all the time. Now, there's things going on, and you usually have in the past taken pictures of the upgrades at 5 in the morning. The sun's up, you're there, and then off you go to something. You're more out front. You're more visible. Other presidents have been, less visible than you. Obviously, you like that part, or you wouldn't do it. But to get out and see the people and talk to the people and you listen. If somebody has a question, you have no problem with stopping and listening. And I think that you've probably gotten some really strange ideas that people would like to see you do.
Well, so, the drivers are important. The crew members are important. The people who worked at the Speedway are important. But frankly, the most important people ever at the Speedway are the people that buy a ticket and spend money and are passionate about the Speedway and sit in the grandstands. So my first and most important job is to listen to them and take care of them. There are a lot of people that know Mark or know me or know others and want favors and whatever, but they forget the most important thing is the customer that pays. Those of us that get to work there, it's a pleasure to get to work there, right? So you have to listen to the customers. You have to go out and talk to them. You have to sit in the grandstands with them. And I think you'll find 80% of the races, I'm in the grandstands, or I'm in the infield, or I'm talking to fans. I could, I'll go through a suite and say hello and thank you to somebody that maybe writes us a check and allows us to do what we get to do. But it's really the people that come back every year, and that's why I make my phone calls. So I told you on the way here, in my 2.5 mile drive here from the Speedway, I have my list, and typically I'll bring a list in the car every night of about 15 phone numbers, because I've learned that of the 15, about a third of them are going to be the wrong numbers. And then probably 60% of those calls end up being voicemail messages that I leave, because either I don't get them, or because, like a lot of us, when we see a number we don't recognize, and I call from my cell phone, I don't block it, so it's my cell phone. You look at a number, you don't know who it is, they don't answer, which is funny, because sometimes in fact it happened tonight. So I talked to one person who, there's a lot of people sometimes when you call are certain you're going to sell them something, even though you say, hi, I'm Doug Boles, president of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Just calling to thank you for being a customer. We don't get to celebrate 102 runnings Indy 500 this May without folks like you, and it means an awful lot to us. And that's really all that's really all I'm calling for. And they go, sometimes people say, great, see you later. And other times people realize I'm not, and you can get in these really cool conversations, which is the best part of my day usually. I'll say, hey, Don, so who introduced you to the Indy 500? How did you fall in love with it? And it's always my dad, my granddad, or I was at Uncle Bill's house, and we went there every Memorial Day weekend. I'd listen to it on the radio, and I told myself as a kid, when I grow up and I can afford it, I'm going to go to the Indy 500. There's kind of the three areas where most of the stories come from, and then they talk about how much they love it. But so tonight I talked to one guy. He was sure I was going to sell him something, so it was like, thank you. Had a call last week that I called, and I said, went through that whole spiel. I just went, and the guy says, well, that's weird. So it's kind of, because people just don't expect it. So tonight, then I left 3 other voicemail messages, and the second voicemail message I left, I'm leaving the voicemail message for the third guy, and my phone's ringing with the number I just called, because the guy's figured out, he's going, okay, now I know who it is, I'm going to call him back. But generally, I can't take that call because I'm either leaving a voicemail message or talking to somebody else. But it really is the highlight of my day when you can talk to a customer, understand why they fell in love with the Speedway, what brings them there, and you get great ideas. And you also get crazy ideas, right? But the cool thing about the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, I think all of us here in this room can relate to this, it's a privately owned company that a family that we all love owns, right? But each one of us feel like we own it. I mean, we feel like it's ours. It's our experience. It is a privately held company that feels like it's publicly owned, and people connect to it in such a passionate way that you have to listen to what the fans have to say, and you have to try and solve it, and you have to try and fix it. And And generally, the conversations on the way home are great. Occasionally, you'll get a customer that's really upset about something you've done. You have an opportunity to talk to them, and oftentimes I can't fix why they're upset, but they love the fact that somebody will listen. And if you can give people the reasoning behind it, usually they'll accept that and move on. But what I love about it is, just like everybody in this room, there's nothing better than Indy 500 day every. It is Christmas. It is your wedding day. It's your first child's birth. It's everything in one day, right? And we get to do it every year.
You know, your dad has been around, Judge Boles, has been around the Speedway for many years, and you said initially he wouldn't let you go as a young kid. He wouldn't bring you here. So by the time you got to come here, you had to be ready to tear the fence down to get in this place. You know, it's interesting how things like that happen and how things turn out. I didn't realize until after you were part owner of Panther, and you sold your part and you left. Then I heard you passed the bar. And hell, I never even know you went to law school. I didn't know what you did. Never asked you. And then I hear, then you were vice president of Ignition for a while. Then you started your own company, represented drivers and teams and so forth. And the next thing you know, here you are. The progression along, you had to pick up something. But I have to go back to the first time I met you. I thought, going to try and get the mayor. Good luck with that one. You treat me like, great, sure. How do I get a hold of you? Bing, bing. And I say, within 2 or 3 weeks, Steve Goldsmith was sitting here. And you've been like that. Anytime I've ever had a question, if I send you a text or an email, you will respond. Sometimes not right away, which I don't expect, but that's not a problem. You do. And people recognize that. I asked you to call a friend of mine who was coming for his 55th consecutive race, and he was at a Home Depot. He cried. He called me. He said, you know who called me? I said, how would I know? You're in Florida. I'm here. Doug Boles. What did he call you for? You owe money? No. He called to thank me. I said, really? He said, I made an idiot of myself. I cried. Good for you. But that's the effect that I think you bring to the Speedway that hasn't been done before. You are a face people recognize, and when he says he talks to people and he goes through the infield, I've seen him. I know he does because I follow him. Just listen to what he says. You see a little chubby guy behind, it's me. And what's he doing watching me?
Well, so you kick things off with that. I really believe that it's not about me. It's about the Speedway. And as a fan, I think you want to know that it's almost kind of putting a face to the Speedway and somebody that folks can communicate with, and knowing that the Speedway is out trying to promote itself. And one of the greatest things about the Holman George family, and it really started with Tony Holman, it probably started with his parents as well. They are a family that is quiet. They are a family that does not want to get out in the limelight. Their actions really speak for what they do, and that's served them very well and the Speedway very well over its history. But we're at a world now where you have to go out and scrap for every single ticket you sell. You look at the Brickyard. I mean, the Brickyard is an event that started out here, sold out, and it's on a decline. And it is a fist fight to sell one ticket to the Brickyard. And so you take that mentality that you have for the Brickyard and have the same mentality around the 500. And the thing that scared me more than anything about the job of being president of the Speedway was in 2014, my first year as president of the 500, you knew that, hey man, the next couple of years are going to be awesome because we're going to have the 100th running. But what scared me more than having the 100th running is what happens on the day that the 100th running ends, because you couldn't treat it as an end point. But you also knew there was going to be a pretty natural point for people to say, you know what, I've been to 50 of them, I've been to 60, I've been to 10, however many you've been to, but I made it to the 100th running, I'm going to do something else. It takes a whole day to spend at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and Indy 500, or I'm a little older now, it's harder to walk to my seats, or my kids are playing baseball and I got a baseball game that day. So for us, the challenge was, how do you make sure that you can continue to grow the Speedway? And we knew that 17 wasn't going to be 16, but 17 had to be better than 15 or we were in big trouble. And so that's why you take this sort of grassroots, in the trenches, talk to the customers, do everything you can, and literally from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to sleep, and it drives my wife crazy sometimes because I can't even turn off when I'm at home, what are we doing to make sure that we're selling tickets to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, we're creating an experience that people not just love, but feel like, oh my gosh, I was great again, I got to go back. And I think we're in a world now where you have to, go to the Bell Helmets ribbon cutting today. you know my schedule better than I do. You told me on Thursday we've got a press conference at 3 o'clock. I mean, I literally, if I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow, although I do, because Susie told me when I left that I'm getting in the car tomorrow morning and I'm doing 2 appearances in South Bend and I'll do phone calls on the way back. It literally is do what you can do to make sure, and when we do that, because the Indianapolis 500 and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway isn't just a town of Speedway asset or a city of Indianapolis asset, it's an Indiana asset, and we have to make sure people know that, because so many people come from outside of this market to come here, and at some level it's Barnum and Bailey make sure people know that this is the greatest show on earth, and it is the greatest show on earth. But if we're not out telling people, we're in a world now where people can forget that pretty quick.
It's amazing when they brought the Brickyard in. I thought, oh geez, this is an IndyCar event. It's a track. And then they brought in Formula One. I thought, oh geez, what is this? But I've gotten to like it. First time I had Mark Miles in, I said, have you ever thought about using the facility for anything else? He said, no, this is a racetrack. I said, okay. Was it 1 or 2 years later, we got concerts. You bring in the world's most famous rock band came in here and played. I mean, you bring some of the biggest names in entertainment come in. Obviously, they figured out there's another thing you can do to this place besides just have a couple races. And I think it's great. The more that I see that, I thought, that's smart. Why not? Plus the fact that the state has stepped in and helped, and you've made some phenomenal changes. I can't wait to see that grandstand in Turn 3. That's going to be kind of cool. And then the Hellman Club you got up on the Main Street, that's going well. And from what I understand, sales are good for all of that. And I also understand that the sales are ahead of last year. That's amazing. And part of the reason, obviously, is there have been some damn good races the last 5-6 years.
So the racing's been fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
And I can't wait to see the new cars. And I think race fans, longtime Indy 500 race fans, are anxious to see the new cars. So that's going to be, that's definitely helpful. We have to try new products. We have to try new things. The thing you have to remember, though, is you have to look at those things through the lens of, it is the most important racing facility in the world, so it has to meet some sort of level or bar before you can decide to do it. So if we decided to form a band today and wanted to have a concert at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, they're going to tell us no. But when the Rolling Stones are out and you got a chance to get the Rolling Stones, that fits for an event at the Speedway. So you have to it's a balancing act. It's like Project 100 was a balancing act. We wanted to upgrade the experience, especially in the top row of the seating there, where it was starting to fall down. Those are in a lot of ways, our longest time customers. It is our courtside seat, if you will, A and B and E penthouse areas. But you didn't want. One of the things we considered with that was we can tear that entire front stretch down and build a new one, and that might have felt more like a brand new stadium. It might have felt more like Daytona International Speedway feels now, but it wouldn't have felt like the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And people would have walked in and said, "This is not what my dad brought me to. This is not what I fell in love with." And part of what makes the Speedway is that history and tradition. And even to the extent, if you sat in a grandstand and it felt brand new, something's wrong. You want to sit in the same, at least stand on the same platform that the people have been standing in since the 50s and 60s. So there's a challenge in adding new events, and you want to add them to the right level. So SCCA is a perfect example. You would never host, I don't want to say never, but you would never host an SCCA regional event at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. That's not what it's for. But to host the SCCA National Championships and runoffs at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, maybe. And so we did that last September, and it turned out to be October, and it turned out to be the best event they'd ever had in terms of car numbers. I talked to every business along Main Street. I did not call McGilvery's. I would be curious to know. But every business on Main Street saw a year-over-year uptick of 30 to 50% in the business, because oftentimes we get judged at the Speedway on how many butts you put in seats. Well, that was not a butt-putting in seat event, right? It was a participant event. And what I think Main Street thought, well, it's a participant event, it's not going to be a big deal. It turned out to be a huge deal, because the folks that are there racing and their crews and their friends and family that came to watch them run at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway spent their lunchtime and their evening time on Main Street. And so we look at events like that. The National Championship fit sort of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and it was putting $8 million back into mostly the west side of Indianapolis in terms of its economic development. So we look at it as well as how do we help drive change and help the community. And that's one of the things Mark, and when you talk to him, I don't know if he talked about this, is really, really passionate about is how does he help his position as Holman and Company chairman, how does he use that platform to help grow the West Side economically, help some of the neighborhoods in the West Side, and he's got a bunch of people surrounded by him that absolutely 100% believe in that. And whenever they remove me from this position or whatever happens, and somebody says, hey, what did you do at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway? The last thing I want to say is I sold tickets. Hopefully I say I made the facility better and I made the community better because I've been blessed to have been given this platform for however long I get to do it.
And I'll tell you what, if somebody comes up to you in the next 5 years and say, Doug, I think maybe this time, call us. We'll all go up there and say, no. Because what you brought, I think, is phenomenal. Granted, you have a great team behind you. Allison, nobody better. She knows her way around a lot of things. Mark obviously knows his way.
Well, the thing that Allison and I talk 100 times a day, and she is...
Is that all?
And I hope most of you have met Allison. She was
here. She was here.
She's unbelievable, right? And she cares about this community like no one else. And she has been great at giving us new ideas, helping us execute. She is really great at people skills and helping manage through problems, whatever we've got. But her greatest strength, and I call her the Mark Whisperer, because she's been with Mark forever. And to the extent that we can't get something through to Mark or we can't understand what Mark is saying, you go to Allison and go, hey, here's what we're trying to say to Mark. And Allison has this magical way of getting Mark to understand or getting us to understand what Mark wants. And she is a great partner, but she is the Mark Whisperer. So, it would be fun. You could have Mark and Allison together and let Mark talk, and then Allison could kind of interpret some of it for you.
Yeah. I had her here, it was probably a month ago, I suppose, and I saw her in St. Pete. She said, you have a question, call me. You got my number? I said, yeah, but you got it. No, if you need something, call me. You got a question? I'll be happy.
So I get a lot of credit, or people say, man, you must live there at the Speedway. Allison's there just as early and just as late. Cindy Lucchese, who's our CFO, is there just as early. Actually, Cindy Lucchese probably on most days, except event days, but on most off days probably gets there before all of us. Mark is the same. These are sort of tireless workers. So it's amazing to work with a group of people that can't wait to get to work, can't get there too early, can't stay there too late, and still we got a lot to do.
It was funny when Mark came in, as I'm sure you heard, what does he know about racing? That's not the point. I mean, he's gotten to liking racing now, but he's a guy that can pick people, put the right person in the right job. That's what he knows how to do, and he's been successful at everything he's ever done. And that's what he's done to the Speedway. He's picked some people that had good things going, but he talked them in somehow coming to the Speedway, like yourself, like Allison, like Matt Mindrum, C.J. O'Donnell. I mean, he's got good people around him to do the job, that know what they're doing, and everybody gets along. That's the interesting part. I don't know, I have never heard of anybody saying, that SOB Doug, or anybody.
So you're right. I mean, I think the two things that Mark's great at, the one I give him credit for is he is an unbelievable team builder. He finds the right people, figures out what their strengths are, and puts them in the right position. And a perfect example of that is, he brought Jay Fry in, and Jay was great on the chief revenue side, but Jay's real strength is on the team ops side. And when Derek left, Mark knew that he knew that we were going to be weak for a little while, losing Jay on the chief revenue side, but he knew we were going to be a lot stronger, and IndyCar was going to be stronger, especially with the idea that we were trying to go to the Universal Aero kits, trying to get new engine manufacturers, thinking about sort of long-term planning. Moving Jay over, it was where Jay really belongs, and he's excelled really well there, and that's a lot because of Mark. The other thing about Mark, you can go into Mark, and I don't know if I've talked to you about this before on the show, but you can go into Mark with an entire plan. Here's how we're going to execute the Rolling Stones, and you know that Mark is not going to sign off on it. Mark is going to look at it, and he's going to question every single thing. And usually, a lot of times it can be frustrating, especially if it's a racing thing early on when you're like, oh, you don't know racing. How can you question these things? But what happens, you walk out of there with a better plan and a better project. He's made you look at it in a different way. He's really great at taking an A paper and turning it into an A+ paper. And you're right. He's learned to like racing. But you're not going to find him like me at a dirt track on a weekend off, right?
Right.
That's not what he wants to do. Where there's, and I think that's why he's put me where I am, because he knows that I'm passionate about the Speedway, I'm passionate about the business side of it, but at the end of the day, it's all built on the foundation of I'm passionate about the sport across the board.
Another thing I have to take my hat off, and I just forgot the young lady's name that resurrected the snake pit. Now,
Well,
I
it
know
was
the
Jessica Gunter was really,
Right. That's I just
who is
forgot her name.
Nancy George's daughter,
Right.
who was really the one that came up with the crazy
Right.
idea.
And when I heard that, I thought, oh, goody, because I remember the original one. I used to walk around in there, and I'd come home and say, weren't you at the Speedway for a race? I said, yeah. Well, how come all the pictures looking in the infield? Look at what I took pictures of, that's why. And so when they brought it back, in the first year, I think they drew 4,000, 6,000, something like that. Now it's a sellout of 35,000, and if you're in there, you can't get out. If you had to go to the John, you're in trouble. Holy smoke. Huge success. But from what I've been told and what I've heard from people that have been there, they now come to watch the race as well.
So we are getting some of the people. So it's been around now. This will be our 8th snake pit, fake snake pit. Okay. But the 8th one, and it has gotten to the point where we now see people transition. In fact, I just was in an interview. I was interviewing a young man for a job at the Speedway, and he's been out of school for a year and a half. So I had a 5:30 interview with him today, and it was so fun. And a DePaul University grad, and so I said to him, tell me your race day experience. What do you do? And he talked about how his dad's been coming since 1970, and they've moved all around, but they said in Northwest Vista. And I said, well, what about Snake Pit? I said, all my buddies go to the Snake Pit, but I'm a race fan. I go to the. He said, but some of my friends that started going to the Snake Pit now are coming with us to the 500. They don't want to do the music anymore, but this is what they do on Memorial Day Sunday, and that's really the challenge for us is how do you convert them? But we are seeing people say, this is what I do, and I don't want to stand for 6 hours with 29,000 other people standing around me, so we are getting them to move. And one of the biggest pieces of pushback we got, beyond the fact that old snake pitters were really ticked off that we used the Snake Pit name for the new Snake Pit, but beyond that, people were like, why do you care about these folks? They're not race fans. But then you could take an old snake pitter and go, you weren't a race fan either. And eventually you figured out this is what I do on Memorial Day Sunday. Jessica was so passionate about it. And the second year of it was 2012, and we were transitioning into 2013, and they made me chief operating officer. I was starting to sit down with people and saying, okay, talk to me a little bit about Snake Pit. What do we need to do? And one of the ops guys said, we had a really big problem with Jessica. I said, okay, what's the big problem with Jessica? Well, she'll just tell us to bring in loads of dirt, and just because she was so passionate about it, and she was always fixing it. And I only bring that up to say the next time we bring loads of dirt into the Speedway, it's going to be to build a short track, because that's what we need to have back to the Speedway. So hopefully, we're going to get to the point where we can do that.
I had heard that. In fact, I texted you something about it that I had heard. I said, I'm going to go to the guy that will know. And you said that's something we're looking at.
So we're working hard at it.
And there's room there somewhere. Take a couple of cars and put them someplace and put a track in there.
Yep.
You're going to put grandstands and the whole thing around them?
So all kinds of operational logistical issues that make it not simple, right? Grandstands being one, and exact location, and then where do you, where's the pit area, which is the paddock area, depending on how you want to call it, for a sprint car or midget, and can you do a standalone event? Should it be part of another event? If you build it in turn 3, where do you park car? There's a whole lot of questions that we have to get answered, but we're trying hard.
It's amazing. Again, you talk about the old timers that I came here in the early 60s, and it was Indianapolis 500, and I figured out how to sneak into the pit area. I watched the cars, not the pit and garage. I stood there in gasoline and watched the guys. They had a Firestone jacket, and they had a rag in there. So I looked around, somebody dropped a rag. Bingo, I got it. Then I went over and bought a Firestone jacket. Then I stood there, and the car came, and I just followed them in. Nobody said a word. Now, you couldn't do that today.
But sure you can. Just act like you belong there, right? And then
yeah, I've tried that. They said, what are you doing here? You got to pay. How'd you do that? I don't know. But, as long I've
Can I tell you my pagoda story?
Sure.
Speaking of acting like you belong there. So most of you know that Connor Daly is my stepson, and Connor was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes as a 15-year-old. And so we've gotten involved with the JDRF folks that are trying to find a cure for type 1 diabetes. And 3 years ago, they have their big fundraiser downtown, and they were looking for an auction item, and they asked for money. Everybody asked for money first, and money is the hardest thing to do. And I said, well, how about we create an experience that you could do in the live auction? So we created an experience that was do a champagne toast on the pagoda roof on race morning as the sun comes up, and I would greet the guests up there, and we would do a photo op, and it's on the roof, which not a lot of people get a chance to go on the roof, and so it sold for $17,500 for 4 people to come onto the roof of the pagoda on race morning. So we had everything planned, and about the sunrise is like 6:09 or 6:10 or something, and so I went up to the roof about 6:01, 6:02, just wanted to make sure everything was okay, and I walk up the stairs. You get off the elevator on the 10th floor, and then you walk up the stairs the rest of the way to the roof. And I get up to the roof, and I walk out, and the guy stops me. He says, "I'm sorry, you can't go up here, sir." And I said, "Okay." And I have my little thing on, and I show him my thing, and I said, and I just have one little icon in the back that says all access. And he looked at me and he said, "It doesn't say roof." And so I said, "Okay, I appreciate that. Thanks. I'll just wait." And so just the door that walks out, there's a little area about this big as where we're sitting, and there was a little folding chair there. So I sat down in the folding chair, and I'm just doing emails and probably tweeting something, right? And and just chatting with the guy, and everything's going on, and then like 5 or 6 minutes later, security comes up with the group that's supposed to come up there and say, "Hey, you doing all right?" I said, "Yeah," and then and the security guy tells the guy, he says, "Okay, we need to go out here and do this," and he said, "Well, I didn't want to let this guy up because he didn't have the right credentials," and they said, "Well, do you know who that is?" He said, "No, but he doesn't have the right credentials." So it's my point is that it doesn't matter whether it's your first time or you live there every day. There are times when you get stopped, and people laugh a lot of times because I sat down, but that guy was doing his job, right? And his job was, even though I had all access, it didn't say roof, and I would rather he worked harder that way than just letting somebody up on the roof. And I remember at one point in time sitting in Tony Hallman's office over in Terre Haute, and if you've not ever been over there, it's a great bake shop, and it's really cool, but when he passed away, they basically have left his office the same as it was after he passed away. And inside his office, he has inside one of the walls, there's a little sliding area, and inside it are scrapbooks that he started keeping from November of 1945 when he bought the Speedway. So it starts out with all these articles from around the country of, Tony Hallman buys Indianapolis Motor Speedway from November 1945, and it goes up through like the early 50s. And there's an article in there that I've spent, if I get over to Terre Haute, I spend a lot of time just sort of reading through that and trying to understand the letters he wrote to presidents, and that's part of the reason I call people and I try and get out and promote, because he was tireless. If you look at all the things he did to promote not just the Speedway, but the state of Indiana. And one of those stories in there was talking about how he had been stopped by the old yellow shirts back in the day because he didn't have the right credential. And instead of saying, "Hey, I'm Tony Hallman, I own the place," he said, "You're right, I don't have my credential," and went back and got his credential to make sure. And so to me, even if it's me, if they stop me and I don't have the right credential, it's not, "Hey, do you know who I am?" It's, "Thank you for doing your job. I'm going to sit down." Sometimes it'll, people I don't think understand when that happens, but it really is the way that we all should act around those folks. They got a job to do, and if they start going, "Well, I kind of know that guy, and I think he's probably okay here," if you don't have the right credential, you don't have the right credential. So, you got stopped, and you probably get stopped in May, and just thank the guy for doing his job and show him your credential.
If I forgot it, which I have done, walked out.
So by the way, we've done away with the all access icon because there were only like 4 people that had them. So now I have the thing with all the icons on it, and it says roof, so I don't have a problem anymore.
I'm glad to hear that. It's amazing. Your career has been centered around motorsports in one way or another, a team owner. By the way, whatever happened to Ignition? Did it just kind of fade, or is it still going but just not here?
So Mark Driscoll, we called him Dill, was the guy that owned it. He and his wife Susan. They actually sold it to a nephew of Dill's named Mikey Hersom, so it's still around. And Dill and Susan sort of retired to southern Georgia and have a place in Lake Placid, and he does a lot of consulting work. But the company still exists, and it does all kinds of experiential and activation work, and I get a chance to talk to him every once in a while. In fact, I got a text from Mark Driscoll last week. He said, "Hey, I know you're a prayer warrior. I got a friend of mine who's just had a terrible fall, and he's having surgery tomorrow morning. Can you put him on your prayer list?" And so I stay in touch with him on stuff like that.
Again, when I heard that you had gotten past the bar, I thought, hell, I never knew you went to law school. But it obviously makes sense with your dad. Is your dad still pretty much involved with the sport? Does he still is an observer? He takes some snack up to Paul up in at the flag stand in May?
Yeah, he still keeps Paul out of trouble. And my dad was in Phoenix longer than I was. I was there for Friday, and I came home and watched it on TV Saturday night. Dad was in the flag stand for Phoenix, so he'll do 4 or 5 races a year. The 500 is one that he does. He's slowing down a little bit, but he and I talk every day, and literally the first words out of his mouth almost every phone call is any racing news. My dad is. I get my passion from my dad. He got it from his dad. I mean, it's one of those perfect Indianapolis Motor Speedway stories where it was sort of all passed down through the DNA, and a lot of you know my dad, and my best friend. He's my hero. He's as colorful as they get, right? I mean, my dad is he is a unique person, and I love him more than anything.
Well, I got to tell you, when he was on the bench, he'd say, "Here's my number. Call. You got anything, come up, call me." So one day I just called. I had something I thought he might be interested, and I called. And his girl answered and said, "Just a minute." "Who is it?" I told her. "Just a minute." A couple of minutes later, he said, "Hey, Don, what's going?" I said, "Where were you?" He said, "I'm in court. I just banged and took a break." "You left 2 lawyers and some..." "Yeah, what the heck? I want to find out what's going on."
Yeah, all you have to say is it's about racing,
Yeah.
and it's over.
End of the day.
Yeah.
And as far as slowing down, I've seen him recently, and he doesn't slow down. He used to walk as fast as anybody I know to get to where he's going.
Yep, he does.
Well,
so in between practice sessions, I guess in between the practice session and qualifying, we ended up, Dad decided, hey, we got to go to In-N-Out Burger. And so I got the rental car out. We drove out of the infield. We went to In-N-Out Burger, had an In-N-Out Burger, and took him back. So, he's always moving. He can't sit still.
And I understand he's doing maintenance work and building things and fixing things.
Yeah, my sister bought a house like 2 blocks from them, and he spent a year just helping them rebuild a house. And he's always looking for something to do.
Well, I've taken up enough of your time. I asked you if you could come in for 30 minutes, and I've had you for 33, so I better shut up or you won't come back the next time.
I'm happy to come back.
It's always a pleasure, and I know I speak for all of these people. There isn't a better representative of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway than you and your staff. Keep up the good work, and I hope you're there for many, many years.
Well, I appreciate it, and however long I'm there, I hope everybody knows that I do bring 100% of my passion to it every day, and the day I'm not there, I'll be sitting out here every Tuesday night picking on you, but more importantly,
what the hell are they clapping for?
A lot of the faces in here are the same faces you see every Tuesday night, and it really is. I mean, this is the roots of why the Indianapolis 500 is successful, because you guys care enough. You come listen to this guy every Tuesday night, right? And you guys probably have memorized. He has to read his sponsors every week. You guys probably have it memorized. That could be a good game. You could let people come up and try and give you a beginning spiel. But it really starts with you guys, and hopefully you guys are passing it along to kids, grandkids, next door neighbors. There's nothing better than introducing somebody to the Indianapolis 500 for the first time. They don't have to be race fans, and sometimes they don't get that, right? They think, I don't like racing. He's like, it's not about racing. It's about this entire event that just happens to have racing. And then when you get there, you realize you love the racing, but it's really the whole event, and it does start with the passion that all you guys have. Thank you so much for caring about it, the place like you do, and I'm some of you may get a call from me at some point in time, and some of you may not. But the point is, we don't get to do this without you guys. 102 runnings is amazing. It's hard to believe the Brickyard's 25, right? It's the 25th running of the Brickyard, so it's no longer an infant. And hopefully we'll keep doing the right thing. But the most important thing is we keep doing it in a way that you want to keep coming back.
Well, we got to welcome back Kenny and Janine Smith. They came up from Florida for this. They're ready to go.
Hey, how are you? You didn't bring your weather with you, though. Oh, it's a little slower following. Okay.
And there's a couple of guys that came all the way up here to see you from Southern Indiana, sitting over here with Glenn Timmis.
Guys, good to see you.
And then of course there's Howdy Bell. Who cares about
Howdy's awesome. What did we watch the Chili Bowl together that one time at my house? You drove all the way up from the south side to watch the Chili Bowl.
Yeah, he heard there was free food.
That was.
And if I had known that, I'd have been there.
Yeah, well, great. I'll invite you next time. All right, guys. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your time. The president of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Mr. Doug Boles. Now thanks for coming. I really appreciate it. Is Andy here? Oh, here he comes. While he's on his way up, I'm going to remind you that on April 26th is the Behind the Wheel Racing into May downtown at the Dallara building. There's a full group of events, and believe it or not, Mr. Boles will be there as well. Tickets are available at Three Sisters in a Trunk. They're $33. Strangely enough, 33 cars start the race. I wonder how they came up with that. But put it on your calendar. You're going to want to be there. I want to remind you that Sam Pierce Chevrolet in Daleville is a place to go to find the best prices in the country, because trust me, Daleville is in the country. Sam Pierce is always, when he sells you a car, stands alongside you, not behind you, and you'll find out when you talk to him why he is rated at the top of customer satisfaction. Just take I-69 north to exit 34, go east 1 mile, and you won't miss him. Is it time for new insurance for your home, your car, or your commercial property? Then do what many people have done. Call VP Insurance. They're located at 5004 West 16th Street in beautiful downtown, or actually not quite downtown, Speedway. Mike will take care of you. He'll answer all your questions. He'll give you a quote better than what you've been paying and probably better coverage. The number is 317-248-0070. That's VP Insurance at Speedway, 317-248-0070. Jeez, I got a paper in here I don't want. Come on. Oh, I don't want that one either. Classic Racing Times had their big promotion at Phoenix this past weekend. It was quite a good success. They had good car turnout, and of course a lot of people around to see Dick Simon, Pancho Carter, and Steve Chassis. So keep in mind when you go to Pocono, the vintage cars will be at the Pocono Speedway, promoted, of course, again by and managed by Classic Racing Times. And if you want to find out information what they're doing, you go to www.theclassicracingtimes.com and see what's going on. If you are a vintage car fan, you've got to connect with the Vintage Racing Quarterly. Just go to SVRA and subscribe to the Vintage Racing Quarterly, and you'll find out some of the cars you saw as a kid are now running again. So check it out, Vintage Racing Quarterly. It's a top flight magazine. You'll love it. And also, Tony now has the Trans Am series, and it will be here when the SVRA comes in June. I want to remind you that the next SVRA event is 2018 Southern California Historic Sports Car Festival, April 27th to the 29th. So if you're out at the Auto Club Speedway or in the area of Fontana, you got to go there. You'll love it. My next guest is a young man that I've known for quite a number of years. He started out racing go-karts. He also ended up racing open-wheel midgets and so forth. The next thing I know, he's a mechanic. His dad has been involved in motorsports for many years. And Johnny O, I'm sure everybody knows Johnny O. He's now got a club over in Beech Grove that he keeps them occupied and off the racetracks, I guess. But along the way, Andy made his way from driver to mechanic to crew chief to team manager, and he ended up managing the team that his wife drove for. They have now moved up, and they are the proprietors of the Speedway Indoor Karting Center, which I understand when I go there it's crowded, and I'm not there every night, but they say it's doing well. Plus, Andy is involved with Dreyer Racing, is going to be a part of the second car, which I was told by Dennis would be announced today, but I guess it wasn't yet. But nonetheless, they're getting ready, so we're going to find out what's going on in the karting center. Please welcome Mr. Andy O'Gara.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
You know, when I first met you, you were just a young guy. Now you're a father of two, a business owner. You got all this going on, but you still got time to work on a race team. How does that happen?
I don't know. It seems like, especially after the last 2 years, we've had a lot of fun with the Foyd effort, but finished up last year, and I told Sarah I'm probably going to take next year off and and try to race some races with Kyle. We're building a sprint car right now for the little 500, and we got our dirt midgets are staying pretty busy with that program. We bought a Silver Crown car, and so I told her, I said, I'm probably going to take the month of May off. In November, just a few months after the month of May, Dennis Reinbold said, hey, can we go to lunch? And I said, yeah. She said, what was that all about? I said, I just signed on for the month of May again. He said, Dennis is a super passionate, great guy that has given so much to Sarah and myself and my family, and himself and Chase Selman laid out a game plan in front of me with purchasing these 2 new race cars, and the opportunity of the drivers that they had vying for that second seat and the people that they were allowing me to bring with me. It was just something I couldn't turn down. I was super excited about, and I'm still excited about, and just looking forward to May.
So you've commandeered one guy that I know from the karting center who's been around for many years. I didn't hear about the second one. I heard about the first one.
Yep. We got Brad Larson is our crew chief. He most recently came from Ed Carpenter, was with me at SFHR. Before that, spent about 10 plus years at Ganassi. And secondly, Greg Beck is going to be lead mechanic on the car. Works with Sarah and I every day at the karting center, and just been a huge blessing to have on our side. Fantastic individual, and we're really lucky to have him.
He knows how to build a car.
He knows how to build a car, and Greg's just head down, hard worker, no drama, very clean cut when it comes to building race cars, and no quick fixes. And he's taught me a lot, continues to teach me a lot, and it's a lot of fun working with him.
How much damage does he have to fix on your carts? I know he's in the back working on them.
That's a full-time job in itself. It's you get. We're lucky to have the people come through the front door, but there's many days when there's 6 or 8 carts lined up in the back, and then there's some days when there's only 1 or 2. And Greg runs his own program back there, and like I said, he's saved Sarah and I's butts these last few years, and he goes racing with us when he can, on the USAC side, and he was a huge help with me last year with the Zach Veach, the Foyt effort, and he will continue to be this year. He's a big piece of it.
Obviously, the announcement of who's driving the car hasn't been officially announced, although I don't think it's a terrible secret at the moment. And when Dennis texted me back about, it was all right to talk to you about it, he said it's a major company. So my question then to him was, if it's a major company, any chance you run more than one event? And he didn't answer that one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I haven't specifically visited that question with Dennis. I know like I said, he's a very passionate person. He wants to go racing as long as there's good people behind it. Dennis is a racer, and his heart's in the right place, and he wants to win. He wants to do it right, and I think if funding showed up to do it right anywhere else, and he felt like he could contend, I wouldn't put it past him in the least.
Is the car being built as we speak?
Yeah, car's being built. Brad and Greg have put in a lot more time than myself. I haven't put in hardly anything yet. I went up and saw it today. Body fit's done on it. It's been through the paint booth, rear end's built. They were assembling cockpit, and a data guy was laying wires. So really in a really good spot right now. I don't think I've been on an effort this prepared for the month of May in a long time, and the car looks really, really nice.
Now you're going to be, he told me, the strategist for the race.
Yeah, kind of managing the second car effort. Lucky enough to work with Chase Selman. I've known Chase since we were both probably 13 years old, and he's a really good friend of mine, and he's done an awesome job for Dennis. And when those two came down and had lunch, I was excited from the get-go. But I get to kind of look over that second program and call strategy, and got a lot of our SFHR guys that I have a lot of respect for. Got 90% of them to come back and do this one-off with us. So Dennis's commitment to me was to do my very best to help them assemble a strong core for the second car, and he was going to do his very best to keep us together for the duration of this car.
Well, with any luck, and again, I don't know who the sponsor is, but he said the announcement is up to them, and he said it's a big company.
Yeah, I think it's a head turner for IndyCar racing. It's going to be it's a big worldwide brand, and I think brings a lot of merit to where the series is going right now. and it bodes well for Dry Iron Reinbold racing too. What Dennis has put forth here is a serious and legitimate effort for the month of May, and got the opportunity to work with him for 7 or 8 years with my dad, and Dennis has always, like I said, always put forth a great effort, but this year is over the top. I mean, I'm telling you, I think we have a really good shot with the equipment that he's put in front of us.
You said your dad's been involved in racing. He was the team manager for Dry Iron Reinbold for a number of years, Johnny O. Your mom's been involved, Gene, and I haven't seen her. You told me one day, last time I saw you said, yeah, my mom's out there. I went out there. She wasn't there. She went somewhere. I don't know what. But racing has been in your family forever. You married Sarah, obviously a racer from the get-go, brought along with her dad, and then your brother Kyle's running. How often does he run a year?
It really just depends. He manages 3 days a week for me at the karting center to pay the bills, but we try to run as much as we can. I mean, he just finished up running indoors at DeQuoin, Illinois a few weeks ago. We ran him and Dave Darland over there. I think Kyle won his heat, Dave won his qualifier. Dave went right to the A, and Kyle missed it by 1 spot. And there was about 60-some cars over there. So it was a good showing for the team. And Kyle's still getting the hang of dirt racing, but it's good to put a veteran like Dave in there because it confirms what Kyle's been telling us these last few years and where our equipment's going. But I think this year probably 12, 15 races, maybe a little bit more. We're trying to mix it up. Like I said, building a brand new asphalt sprint car. Got Sarah's Uncle Charlie building the motors for that, and got a Silver Crown car now too, and got Charlie's motors for that. We're going to try to run the IRP Crown races, maybe Salem, Toledo, the Wisconsin race, and then I think there's 2 or 3 more asphalt sprint car races at Anderson and maybe a few in Michigan. I feel like you take Kyle on asphalt right now and you give him proper equipment, we can win anywhere we go. In dirt, we're getting closer and closer to competing on a regional level, and we need to continue to up our national program.
Well, I know Kyle's sister-in-law knows how to drive because I was at Winchester when she set the record there, and some of the best in the world had run there, and she beat him.
She still reminds me of that on a daily basis. So no, she. I think as far as some of her, the most fun she's ever had in a race car was sitting in that USAC midget, and we tease her back and forth about wing, non-wing. My little boy is big on non-wing, watching non-wing races, and it drives Sarah mad sometimes. But she loved asphalt midget racing, and she only spent that brief year in it, but had a blast, and I think won 5A mains and set numerous records and contended with some of the biggest names at that time. So,
and I said to her I don't know if she was here, I was just talking to her one day, and I said, "Why are you so quick?" She said, "My dad taught me the quickest way to get from point A to point B is a straight line. It's going like this, you lose time." And but she was smooth.
He told her that, but he also told her a few times you can go flat in one, and she listened to him and wound up in the fence. So I don't know. They got along really good, and Dave he's a brilliant engineer on the race cars, and when it came to the basics and understanding driver feedback and stuff, it clicked, and probably catapulted Sarah into the opportunities in IndyCar the following year that she deserved.
How do you have time to do all these things when you've got a karting center? Now, I go down there every so often because the food is good. We go down there.
Thank you.
And the carts are always out running, so that means activity going on. How do you get away to do these short tracks and you've got 2 kids? Somebody's got to go home and watch the kids. When Sarah's driving the pace car, who stays home and watches the kids?
Yeah, 9 times out of 10, I'm not going to lie, I'm in over my head, but we've got a great team at the karting center with my brother Kyle, with Rocky, our management staff, and Brady and Marissa and my mom and Mike and Noel on the restaurant side. We are so blessed to have great people that help us look after it when we do get the rare opportunity to get away and go racing. And I stay with the kids when Sarah's on the road. She's actually going to Long Beach this weekend, not running the pace car, but her aunt has a place out there, and that's their yearly ritual. So she's taking my daughter out there, and Danny's staying home with me. And we watch all the practice sessions, we watch live qualifying, and have a pre-race get together just like everybody else.
what would you be doing if your family hadn't been involved in racing? What do you see yourself, if I didn't get into racing, if I didn't start driving, what would you do? What would you like to do?
I've never that has really never crossed my mind. I don't know. Hopefully sitting on a beach or something. I don't really know anything. I don't know anything any better. Like I love what I do, and we've been super fortunate to get to do it our way for X amount of years, and lucky enough to have the opportunity to work with my brother and work with AJ Foyt and work with some great car owners, and I don't know what I'd do. I really don't, because even though I joke that I'm in over my head, I don't know what I'd do if I wasn't, even if Kyle wasn't running midgets or sprint cars or crown cars, I'd probably still try to put somebody else in. I really enjoy it. It's therapy for Sarah and I. Like, we have about 4,000 to 5,000 square feet in the back shop area, where right now we're building the hot rods in the back and doing Kyle's racing. But that's when we walk into the building in the morning and we go there, and Sarah does a lot of the day-to-day paperwork and my mom does the accounting, and I try to keep all the loose ends tied up. When you walk through the back area and the racing side and get to see the projects and the fabrication side, that's kind of like 10 minutes a piece on your way in and 10 minutes a piece on your way out. It's super enjoyable for us, and we're still really passionate about it. And the whole point of starting the karting center was being able to try to spend more time with our kids and being able to help Kyle while he's in his prime on the racing side. And I still think he's got a few more years before you say, maybe he'll never get a shot at the big leagues, but we're having fun as long as we can.
And so you're helping Ed. I know when Andy Hillenberg came in to take over the Silver Crowns, he built it. He got guys to take them off the shelf, dust them off,
Absolutely.
and let's go racing. And the car counts I've seen are pretty decent.
Yeah.
So now you're going to jump into that and add another car to the mix.
And I think Levi and Spridge and all those guys, they're trying. They're working really hard. And I called Levi probably about this time last year when I had an opportunity to on a nice beast crown car, and I told him, I said, I need some advice as a friend. And he said, what's that? I said, I need to know that I'm not buying a paperweight. And he said, he goes, no, you're not buying a paperweight. I'm committed. We're committed. We're going to get car counts back up to where they used to be. And I don't want to be one of those people that rolls on the trailer early, but I remember the days when they rolled 20 of them on the trailer early and 25 of them on the trailer early, and the car counts were up, and the series puts on a great show, and I think it's still affordable, and there's a lot of race cars out there, so hopefully they can get them back up there on a consistent basis. I know it's tough to get people to travel to the West Coast, but there's a lot of good racing around here, and I think hopefully between IRP and Salem and Toledo, you'll see car counts back up in the low to mid 20s this year.
Well, I noticed they had 18 or 20 at Phoenix.
18, yeah.
And Aaron Pierce came home third.
Yeah, I saw that.
Jeez, criminally. By now, I think after the end of the race, you need oxygen. The last time Sarah was here, she said that you had sat down with whoever, I can't remember it was, and you laid out the karting course. She said at the end of finishing off half a bottle of wine, I changed it a little bit, and you now go up onto a second floor, a second level, and you go in and watch that, and that's got to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is, and I'm really glad that she did that. At the time, it's kind of like, I don't know, going shopping with your wife or going to pick out a new car with your wife. You've settled on this, and you're like, this is how much it's going to cost, and all of a sudden the budget just got doubled, and you're not real sure how. But what she did there, she added a lot of flair to it, and it keeps people coming in. And basically, what we were able to design with the second level and the pieces that she added, and my brother Kyle added a bit. It's like a giant erector set. So probably about 8 months from now, our goal is to move the top, what you see now on the second level, and reshape it. So we promised our core customer that we are not the people that come in and rake the till every night. We want to put back into the company, and July of this year will be the first company in the United States, karting-wise, to bring the new European CRG fleet of rental karts to the States. So we'll replace our entire fleet in a less, 2.5 year time period. And then, like I said, 7-8 months from now, we'll redo the top level to keep it fresh and exciting.
Whose idea was this to build a karting center, yours or hers?
That was mine. She told me I was crazy for about 8 or 10 years, and finally she had just given birth to Danny, and we'd been working on the plans for a while, and we got word that somebody else may come to Main Street. So I called Scott Harris. I think Scott was out here earlier, and told him, we're ready to go, like now. Like, we'll sign the papers. We'll transfer the money on the land. I know we've been talking about this for 6 months, but we're committed. And, we didn't have all our I's dotted or T's crossed at the time, but we believed in the business plan, and we believed in the team that we had set at that time. And at some point just had to jump. And Sarah's got a saying on her desk that sometimes you have to leap and build your wings on the way down, and that was pretty much what we did there.
Oh, I don't know. Do you think your son will be a race driver?
I don't know. I mean, he absolutely loves everything with the motor. He's got a dirt bike and a four-wheeler, and they got a kid kart for Christmas, and they share it right now. I'm completely content with anything he wants to do. If it was up to me, I'd buy him some water skis or a wakeboard and try to convince him to go to the lake for the weekend a few times. But he loves it. I don't think we'll be able to convince him of anything else. But I'll support him in any way I can, just like my family did, and we'll go from there.
Well, I hate to tell you, but Zoe's mom was a pretty good race car driver. You think she has any eye in that direction, or doesn't she get it yet?
I don't. The cool thing about him right now is you see, and I'm sure I've never experienced it because my kids are just at that age now, but I'm sure plenty of people with kids in sports have seen it where, they're just super passionate about it. They love it. They're smiling. And then they put their helmet on and walk away, and they're completely in another world. And that's what I enjoy the most about it is that the pressure for them right now is off, and they have fun with it. And the moment that I think it's not fun, there's no way I would push it. We want to take them, and we wouldn't compete regardless. We wouldn't compete for championships the first few years. We just kind of hit and miss on different tracks and a lot of testing, and just go have fun with them and see where it goes. And that's kind of what our parents did with us. I don't think we competed for championships until we were 12, 13, 14 years old, somewhere in there, and Sarah was the same way. It was a lot more of a fun thing first.
Besides all this other stuff that you're involved in, you guys, both of you, and sometimes Sarah, make appearances all over. You were at the Bell ribbon cutting today. I understand both of you were there. And in this behind the wheel thing on April 26th, the last stop between 7:40 and 8:30, and I'll see if that works, is going to be at the 1911 Grill, which is the restaurant that's in the karting center. And I'm telling you, if you haven't been there, you got to try it. It's pretty good food. But that's the last stop, and they're going to have prizes. And of course, guess what? Sarah's going to stand up and make some comments. She does a lot of that. Both of you do.
Well, you had the best guy in the world on right before me at doing that, and Doug is he's genuine, heartfelt, hardest worker, cares so much about the community. And when you get to emulate people like him. I mean, Sarah's worked with Doug for a long time, and she does her best to juggle just like Doug does, and he was there today with Bell, and just giving back to the community and the Main Street community, the Speedway community, the West Side community that's done so much for us, and given us the opportunity to rebrand over the last few years from IndyCar racing to karting. I mean, neither one of us will turn down an opportunity, and Bell, Kyle Keitzman, Chris Wheeler, what they're doing on Main Street is awesome, and the support that they've given us the last few years is phenomenal. And what Connie's working on with the Behind the Wheel event and the introduction of what they're trying to do to showcase the sport of IndyCar racing and open wheel racing, it's important, and I think Sarah gets that, and certainly I get that.
There you go. Well, oh, by the way, in case anybody hadn't noticed, you haven't been there for a while, you've been sleeping, they now have an elevator.
Yep.
But however, they got stairs that go up to the second floor. The wait staff walks up the stairs, but you can ride the elevator.
That's right.
And you put in a bowling.
Yeah, we did 4 lanes of mini bowling. We closed in the patios and added some natural gas heaters out there and added the elevator. Stuff that we wanted to do at the beginning and just, like anything, run out of time and money.
That does happen. Especially when you're involved in racing in one way or another. It's easy to run out of money. That's the easy part.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I appreciate you taking the time to come here. I wish you and Sarah nothing but the best, your kids.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you at the Speedway with a car and with a driver yet to be announced, but I'm sure it's going to be in the next couple of days, I would think.
I think so.
Not.
It won't be long.
I hope not, because Dennis is tired of me texting him. When are you going to announce this damn thing? And he said he thought today, but obviously. Then he sent back and said, well, they're a big company. They can come and go as they please. Well, good luck to you. Great to see you back at the Speedway. And I know you don't want to hear this necessarily, but I hope they run a few more races and they drag you with them.
I'd be game.
I'll bet you would. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much.
If you haven't been to the karting center, you got to go down there. Andy O'Gara.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next week, no, the week, is it next week? Yeah, week after next. I have the man who is in command of the contract for the television with NBC. I tried to get him next week, but he said he's got a meeting. NBC's coming to town, so Tuesday night he's got to have dinner, which I thought was terrible. Didn't invite me. And then they have a meeting on Wednesday, so he should have more answers, because I know I've questioned what is going to happen with the new contract, and I don't know, but I'm going to find out, and I've had a lot of people ask, and I certainly don't know because I didn't do it. So we'll find out about that. As for next week, I don't know. I'm going to Long Beach. My son said, hey, can you get away? I said, can I get away? You work for the government. Can you get away? He said, yeah, I got the weekend off, so we're going to Long Beach. You may not get the guest list until late because I won't get home until 8 o'clock on Monday, but I'll try and get it up. We'll be here with somebody. We'll be doing something. Hopefully it's worthwhile. I got a couple of people working on some things. As soon as I get it, you'll get it. Until next week. I want to thank Doug for taking the time because he's supposed to be at the museum, but he came over here. I got a call from somebody that said, Doug's going to be at the museum. Are you sure he's coming? He said he was, and by golly, he was here. So thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Until next week, Don K. saying good night. See you next Tuesday.